The villain here, I hate to say this, is Congress.
Do you really hate it? Do you really hate saying that? The villain is Congress. And it is, I've lived through 40, I've lived in this town 40 years. I've lived through, 15 government shutdowns. This is the stupidest shutdown we've ever seen. Democrats are saying, we will not allow people to, because you don't want voter ID, which is something 80% of Americans are in favor of. Blacks are in favor of it.
But what does voter ID have to do with funding the Department of Homeland Security?
So that we can't have honest elections, you're basically creating mayhem.
The SAVE wasn't even part of this conversation until like 2 days ago.
Why can't you get the thing open so people aren't missing their flights, people waiting 2 and 3 hours, and all we have to do is pass legislation. Let's get voter ID, let's get the government open, and everybody goes away happy.
So I'm going to give you a very truthful answer. There's one villain in this drama, and his name is Donald Trump.
How did I?
Thune had a deal
with the Senate. He didn't shut it down.
Okay, don't interrupt me, okay?
Yeah, he didn't shut down.
Thune had a deal that said we're going to separate ICE, and we're going to pass the Homeland Security bill on its own. And here's the deal. ICE got $75 billion in your big, ugly bill. They don't need any more money. And then the mayhem that they are doing to American cities, terrorizing citizens, murdering 3 people, 1 in LA, 2 in Minneapolis, and the general public does not like what ICE is doing. It's polling poorly. So there's a simple solution. Do what the Majority Leader Thune wanted to do. Separate ICE and CBP, pass the DHS bill, pay TSA workers, pay the Coast Guard, fund FEMA, and then we can talk about ICE later. But the president said, I don't want to do that. Then he wants to attach a voter suppression bill to that. That is ridiculous. It has nothing to do.
It's supported by 80% of Americans. How is that
if you're going to raise the SAVE Act, I just need to say this. It is not a voter ID bill.
80%.
Every group
supports it except Democrats in Congress.
It's not a voter ID bill, okay?
It's a voter suppression bill.
I will say what the bill does. Requiring everyone to have passports or birth certificate is not voter ID. Most people think voter ID is a requirement of driver's licenses. I think a lot of Democrats are fine with the requirement of driver's licenses, and they voted for that in the Freedom to Vote Act. But I would say this whole conversation is exactly what's wrong with Washington, because this bill
everything in America except
includes
vote.
You're not even responding to what I said. Driver's license.
No, how's that changing the subject? Everything you have to do in America today requires an ID except voting.
Let her talk. Let her talk.
In the states that have voter ID, they require a driver's license. There's really there's no states that are asking what the SAVE Act is, which is a birth certificate or a passport, which will honestly ensure a lot of people who have a right to vote can't vote. And honestly, this has nothing to do with DHS.
I will just say
TSA.
that having been covering this now for however long it's been going on, the SAVE Act only became part of this conversation when the president brought it up a couple days ago. Okay, this has been shut down for quite a while, and it's been about ICE.
If I could go back to the original point, which I think is really, really important here. We don't have the numbers on our side to pass this. And I think it's important for the American people to understand, Republicans for the most part are behind this. We are going to need some Democrats' help and support. Now, I think Republicans are spot on with some of the things that they're demanding as it pertains to ICE. Democrats philosophically disagree, and that's perfectly fine. My worry, though, is we are in the midst of a conflict with Iran. I do worry about the safety of Americans who are traveling. I do worry about TSA agents who are sleeping in their freaking cars because they're not getting paid. This should be unacceptable in this country. And so, earnestly, I must say, Democrats, we need a little help here. And let's figure out a way to compromise to pass this so that people can go to work and so that Americans can stay safe. I don't think that's asking too much.
One question I do have is that their Republicans have accused Chuck Schumer of moving the goalposts on this. And John Thune, they had gone down to the floor over and over again, Chuck Schumer had, and said, we'll fund everything except for ICE, right? John Thune gets the president to agree to a version of that, right? They're going to try to do the SAVE Act, and they're going to try to do the payments for ICE in the reconciliation bill. And essentially, Democrats said, no, actually, we don't really agree to that anymore, right? So, what do you say to that, right?
I think that the truth of this is that ICE and CBP have always been part of this negotiation for Democrats. It is CBP that actually, the people who worked for CBP were the people who killed Alex Preddy. So it is both of those things. I do think this is not just an ICE conversation, it's both of those. There are agreements that Senate Democrats and Republicans had last week around reforms that Senator Thune has also walked away from. So I think we all hope that we resolve this as soon as possible. I would also say a simple way to resolve this is to have bipartisan votes to just support TSA funding, which is what Democrats have offered 8, 9, or 10 times.
Senator Murray
So
offered it,
either one of those paths. But I think you're right. People have to give. But a way to do that is to agree to some reforms that we know Republicans have already agreed to as of last week.
I want to play something that Senator Rick Scott had to say about this, and I think it's worth noting as you listen to this that Senator Scott is the third richest member of Congress, which means, and it's kind of wild when you think that he's only the third richest member of Congress. His net worth is over $500 million, $500 million. Let's watch.
These are Democrat senators that make $174,000 a year. Some of them multimillionaires. The average net worth of a Democrat senator is over $3 million, and they're okay that people are making $50,000, right? They're okay with them not getting paid. That's exactly what's happened with TSA agents. And Democrat senators have said they have to get paid, so they're still getting paid, right? While TSA agents aren't, that are out there trying to protect us.
So again, I think we should underscore repeatedly that these TSA agents are out there on these front lines trying to protect the American traveling public. They are not, honestly, paid enough money, period, the end. However, is Rick Scott the right messenger for this?
No, I'll take that one.
Yeah.
I'll take that as
Not,
no.
not exactly. Not exactly.
It's really
I
hard
don't
one for
understand
me.
why you're opposed to, at least in the short term, until you get this resolved, put some of the Border Patrol people to help get people through the airport so they don't have to wait 3 hours in line.
Why don't we just fund a clean TSA that's pay the employees' bill? It's been introduced in the Senate repeatedly, and Republicans keep saying no. There are easy solutions to this, but we keep complicating it.
Well, because everyone wants to use the political leverage that exists for whatever ends they have. Welcome to Washington. Tonight, hundreds of ICE officers were at 14 airports across the country. Officials say they're assisting with simpler tasks that don't require specialized training. Travelers have spotted agents handing water bottles out in long lines. And the acting TSA administrator says they've been received well by the public. President Trump says this is helping ICE rehab a fake image that Democrats have given them. He also called them great American patriots who, quote, happen to have much larger and harder muscles than most. Okay. Would anyone like to fact check
The public is receptive to it. Look, I understand if you're a Democrat and Democratic elected officials have taken a position in part because they're responding to their constituents. That's the nature of electoral politics. I get it. But I think if you can prioritize a limited TSA staff to focus exclusively on screening, while the ICE agents are doing other things, they're doing behavioral assessments, making sure that there aren't improper people going through lines. I don't think that's necessarily an operationally bad thing.
I agree with that. I mean, why not? Why not do it until this gets settled? The one thing that bothers me is when you keep talking about ICE agents as there's somehow like villains and demons. Now, look, there's some bad actors, no question about it. And by the way, I'm not even a fan of the deportation of people who are in the country working. I'm opposed to that.
I'm happy to hear that.
But look, it's putting these people in danger. When Democrats say how evil these people are and so on, it's these are the people who reduced illegal immigration by 95% under Donald Trump. That's one of the great triumphs of modern times.
Have you seen how they treated people?
And I'm opposed to that. Look, if the ICE agents, and you're right, there are some ICE agents that are out of control, but there are tens of thousands of ICE agents, and you act as if they're all villains.
I'm not calling them villains. I'm just talking about this ridiculous request to fund ICE after they got $75 billion in the big ugly bill.
Yeah.
And,
Well, that's a different
the
issue.
public watches this and they say, wait a minute, what are these ICE agents doing? So, I'm not going to fault the public for feeling a sense of mistrust, especially when the message coming from this administration is we hate them and we want them out of here.
With respect to all that money, though, let me just take one. All that money, we had to spend all the money because Joe Biden let in 6 million illegal immigrants.
that
It
has
takes a
nothing
lot
to
of
do
money.
with
Joe
to get
Biden is not president anymore. Donald Trump is. Nice try.
But the illegal immigrants are still
Can
in
I
the
just say,
country.
respectfully about ICE, I think the position of Democrats on ICE is that ICE should really just follow the laws that your local law
Okay.
enforcement does.
I agree with that.
That your local law enforcement is required to have a warrant when they break into your house. I think you, as a supporter of the Constitution, would agree with that. Those are the kinds of protections that people are asking for. No one is saying I'm not saying, I don't think you're saying everyone who works for ICE is a terrible person.
No, not
I
at
think
all.
I think what's actually tragic about ICE is that the president, by basically trying to ensure that there are no protections for civilians or American citizens, has created an ICE force that the public distrust. And it's not just Democrats, independents, and some Republicans. The attitude towards ICE is very negative.